Hi there! Welcome back to my channel. This week is week 3 of Funguary. What is Funguary, you may ask? Well, it's an art event like Mermaid or Inktober. It is hosted by FIFL and it has 4 weeks worth of prompts. This week is Malicious. All of these fungi are toxic or poisonous in some way, shape, or form. There are so many cool fungi here, but for the biggest creep factor, I'm going to pick Ophiocordyceps, the zombie fungi. This fungi preys on insects and ends up taking over their movements, effectively making them prisoners of their own bodies. Creepy stuff. For her design, I hopped over to Pinterest and created a mood board for her. I wanted to go for like an evil queen whose eyes were covered, so it's like the fungi is actually controlling her. But what doll to use for this project? I need someone with a soft face that I can add to. I've got it. Big Me, bring in my next victim. Well, that wasn't very nice. Do you have anything to say for yourself? Well, here's Draculora, who I'll be transforming this week. Big Me, take her away for punishment. Now, to get her ready for customizing, we have to take her back to her basic form of no hair and no makeup. Take a small pair of scissors and chop away. Once the majority is gone, go ahead and try to cut as close to the scalp as possible. Once her head is fully shaved, we have to remove it. Take a hairdryer and heat up the vinyl. Once she has been removed, it's time to get rid of all her nasty hair. Take a flathead screwdriver and start removing the plugs. Once you get enough, take a pair of needle nose pliers to remove it from her neck hole. Sometimes the glue is a little too big to remove from her neck, so we're going to have to cut open the back of her head. That is a giant clump of hair. To remove her face, use 100% acetone and Qtips. And now we have entered the ugly makeup stage again. Once her face is all cleaned up, it's time for sculpting. For this doll, I will be giving her a crown of mushrooms over her eyes. To help make it permanent, we need to add armature wire for them. To do this, simply take wire, shove it through the vinyl, loop it, flatten it, and then pull it back out. Once you get a bunch, she's gonna kind of look like a creepy bug. Now take your favorite non-baked clay to fill in the sculpture and keep it in place. I personally use a 2-part clay called Apoxie Sculpt. Once you have the base flushed out, it's time to add the mushroom caps. For these, I just take a ball of clay, make it into a cone shape, and put it on top of the wires. Once you have all of them, she should look something like this. At this point, I realized that she should be back on her body, as Apoxie Sculpt is prone to cracking once it's cured. For all my dolls, I always snip the neck peg into this shape, as it helps me take their heads on and off at later dates if needed. After 24 hours of cure time, we can do the detail sculpting. For this part, I'm thickening the wires holding the mushroom caps to make them look like they're growing out of her skin. I'm also adding other textures to make it look more interesting. Pro tip, epoxy doesn't stick if you use water, so I always dip my tools in water so I can smoothly place the clay. I'm adding this wire here for a small mushroom later on. To create this texture, I am taking small balls of epoxy and denting them with my ball tool. I'm not sure what these squiggles are, but they look kind of cool. Now to add more of these spots. It's to make her face look more interesting than if she just had the big mushrooms. To make this tiny mushroom, it's just a ball of clay on a thin wire. And on this side, I added 2 more mushrooms. To help anchor them, I added more of the spotted texture. The extra clay will keep the wire in place. And with that, the sculpting is done. I think she's really cool looking. Now we have to paint. First, mix up a pink color to cover up the sculpting. Then we need to block in the base colors. With these, we are going to have to do several layers of paint to make sure that they look opaque. I thought brown, red, blue, and purple would look good. Once we block in the colors, I'm adding green to the base of the mushrooms to blend them into her skin. For this, I am using light green, dark green, and brown. At this point, I decided I hated the purple, so let's fix that. Now for her lips. I can't use pencils on this paint, so I have to paint them on. I think bright red will look really good here. Now we just need to keep blending and shading to make the green look more complete. You can use her skin tone that we mixed up earlier to help blend out the edges. Now, to give the mushrooms better depth, I am dry brushing black onto the tops of the brown mushrooms. I do apologize though, I accidentally forgot to record her hair, so she's just going to magically have hair later. The nice thing about painting her skin is I can fix her lips and other spots I may have made mistakes. Now I am adding white spots to the red mushrooms for details. And with that, her face is done. I love it! I ended up adding 3 coats of varnish off screen to help protect the paint job. Now let's make her clothes. I'm using these 2 patterns from DG Requiem on Etsy. For fabric, I'm using this dark maroon crepe, this black stretch velvet, and some spiderweb lace. Now take your main dress pattern and cut it out of the stretch velvet. Once it's cut out, we need to glue around the neck and shoulders for clean hems. Once glued down, it should look like this. Well, let me bring it closer. See? Nice hems! Now we need to stitch down the sides. After that, let's make the high-low skirt. Using the pattern, I cut the exact shape out of the maroon fabric, but I cut one with an extra 2 inches out of the lace. Now let's join them around the center. After that stitch, we need to connect it to the body of the dress. And this is how it turned out. I love it. It definitely screams Morticia Addams. Now let's paint the shoes. I'm using a pair of Venus's shoes. First, I paint them black, and then I filled in the teeth with white. Now taking a red, splatter it onto the teeth so it looks like they just ate. After cleaning up the edges with black, I took a wash of black paint to bring out the details of the teeth. Now take the same red and highlight the details like the laces, zipper, and back lines. Please do not do what I did. Paint thin coats and allow them to dry. Dunking them in varnish was a nightmare. And this is how they turned out. They look like evil Doc Martens. I want a pair. And finally, she needs a weapon as she is evil. To make this, I'm taking a popsicle stick and using another doll to measure the size I want. Now take a box cutter and carve out the shape. To make sure it doesn't splinter, take a sanding block and smooth out all the edges. For the blade, I'm using a sheet of clay I made in my pasta machine. To attach it, I'm using a ton of bacon bond. Once it is baked and completely cooled down, it's time for paint. First, I am painting the blade black, as the silver paint will show it better on that. Then I'm coating it with silver. Once it is dry, it's time to dry brush it. I'm using blacks and browns to weather it. Now I am taking a watered down brown acrylic to make the wood of the handle a darker brown. Now with the same red I used for her shoes, I added blood splatters to her scythe. So now we have the doll, her dress, her shoes, and her scythe. It's time to play dress up. And this is how she turned out. I really love how she turned out, but I wish I had thinned the varnish that I used for her face so it wasn't so thick. Well, now I know for next time. So here she is, the Ophiocordyceps doll. She needs a name. Asking her might be a bad idea, but I think it's gonna be our safest bet. Ma'am, what should we call you? Well, here's Queen Cordelia. I'll see you next time. Bye!